Hi, welcome to our channel. Good New. A dearth of critical semiconductor skills, as well as the rising cost of such individuals, are now hot topics in the Chinese market. Indeed, the severe skills shortage in the semiconductor industry has become a major worry for the global business. With the commencement of the golden decade of the IC business, talent pay have also shown a clear rising trend. The inflow of massive amounts of capital in recent years has aided the rise of China's domestic semiconductor chip manufacturers, while elite R&D expertise remains in short supply. Nowadays, it appears that pay increases are the simplest way for Chinese firms to recruit employees. Simultaneously, scrupulous poaching has undoubtedly increased the industry's labor expenses. So, would the salary increase benefit China's semiconductor industry? Can wage increases help China's semiconductor industry prosper and establish an autonomous supply chain? That, and much more, will be the subject of our discussion today. Previously, it was incredibly difficult to attract the best people to the industry in China. There were several reasons for this, the most significant of which were two. To begin, semiconductors require an extraordinary level of detail and accuracy, and every part of the semiconductor design or manufacturing process requires years of research merely to obtain an acceptable level. Second, and most importantly, all of this study and labor will not result in a better paying job than just learning to design application-level software. As a consequence, the smartest employees, including those who studied semiconductor design, would be lured away to the vast Western internet companies, where they would be paid far more than China's collapsing semiconductor sector could ever afford. However, we have seen a huge increase in China's semiconductor talent need in recent years. Companies are becoming increasingly vertically integrated, forming their own semiconductor units, while startups abound. However, just because there is a lot of investment and demand does not mean that significant talent will emerge right away. Because talent takes years to develop, the finest people may command high compensation right now. The expanding tendency benefits the Chinese business, but it must be controlled. It is crucial to ensure that the new inflow of expertise does not primarily focus on design at the expense of other critical aspects of the value chain, notably chip fabrication facilities and equipment manufacturers, where the country faces the most pressure from foreign governments. In terms of chip engineer remuneration, semiconductor businesses face a conundrum: either increase operating expenditures and burn more money by recruiting the best employees with high salaries, or ignore this trend and risk selecting less than ideal candidates. HR executives in the industry even argue that the sharpest graduates may have many offers and vie for the highest compensation possible. Regardless, salary appears to be rising, with Alibaba offering up to 500,000 to 600,000 renminbi per year to new chip engineers. A semiconductor engineer's annual salary in the United States is around $110,000. A bit more than 700,000 renminbi. This rising wage trend is putting tremendous pressure not only on startups, but also on all traditional semiconductor businesses. It is simply too tough to compete with the internet businesses that have entered this sector, and smartphone companies are also stealing employees. There is a double whammy of increased expenses and competition for staff, as well as a decline in customers. Alibaba or Oppo were once your clients, but they have now poached your labor and are producing their own chips. Remember that these are graduate wages. Experienced semiconductor veterans may command much higher compensation not just because to their competence, but also due to their scarcity. This stance makes it easier for people to often move occupations in order to earn higher wages or, at the very least, to use the dread of relocating as a bargaining chip for a better contract. That's not ideal for the long-term growth of a semiconductor firm or its products, especially because designs can take more than 18 months from start to finish. Indeed, the growing remuneration of semiconductor engineers is exacerbating the industry's basic problems. It is worthwhile to evaluate the impact of all of this on chipmakers like SMIC and semiconductor manufacturing equipment, SME, producers like AMEC, companies that are driving China's chip independence plan's two key goals. Increased compensation attracts fresh talent to the semiconductor industry, although the majority of these earnings are concentrated in the chip design area. While internet and cellular companies are boosting pay, none are developing technology or constructing manufacturing facilities. New talent will aspire to enter the design industry, maybe at the expense of China's major choke points, fabrication and equipment. Wages in this country will need to keep pace as well if they are to attract all of the new talent they desire. Naturally, this boosts costs, perhaps pushing Chinese fabs to face the same cost concerns that Western countries have when compared to Taiwan. Indeed, Chinese fabs such as SMIC have been providing substantially greater pay to overseas employees in order to entice them away from Taiwan or South Korea. It's unclear whether they're willing to boost wages for local employees as well. Naturally, such developments will have an influence on the activity of multinational semiconductor businesses in China. While Chinese corporations receive various forms of government assistance, overseas firms with design centers in China do not. When the next-door startup, internet business, or phone provider offers double the pay, it is challenging to retain top talent in your China operations. China is no longer regarded as a low-cost design center. Furthermore, a high salary does not necessarily reflect a high level of quality. However, not every graduate earns such a large salary. According to several industry insiders, because there are so many new graduates entering the semiconductor business, particularly digital design, most of them cannot fetch high salary because firms may just recruit a different graduate. Several companies have complained that they are low on young engineers. A small percentage of postgraduates with real-world experience can choose from 10 to 20 different employment offers. The bulk of new graduates, however, have transitioned from other degrees to the semiconductor industry through self-study or a training class. Although semiconductor talent has grown on paper, the majority of it has little competence and skill. There aren't enough competent graduates in the market, and 3 to 6 months of rigorous training won't suffice. Wages have increased, but difficulty has not. Because the industry has a very low tolerance for errors, once a chip is taped out, it cannot be modified like software. HR has to be more aware of these new semiconductor engineers' genuine skills and assign them appropriate remuneration and duties. Overall, there is no doubt that salary hikes were necessary in order for China to attract talent into the company, therefore this trend is favorable to the country. However, the money may be flowing in the wrong direction, generating issues for many in the sector. Startups and traditional semiconductor firms are struggling to compete as previous clients poach staff and the market is suddenly flooded with fresh semiconductor engineers who lack real-world experience and in-depth expertise to ensure the end product is bug-free. Furthermore, this increase in talent and revenue does not appear to be flowing to where China needs it the most, fabs and SMEs. The growing interest and rush to learn semiconductor design is not a bad thing for China, but it is now unbalanced and potentially destructive to some sections of the industry. Thanks for having your watching in this video. You can add your ideas or suggestions below. Please keep following our channel and like our videos.